Good evening, Mr. Perfect. It's Thursday night again. Time of the week is for TRH, the Reconnection Hour by Mr. Perfect. I'm Terry, founder and CEO of Mr. Perfect. So most of you will know, but those who don't, Mr. Perfect brings men together at barbecues across the country, currently in 32 places, I believe, with more coming, to create communities and connection for the betterment of their mental health and to reduce isolation. We regularly try and do it every Thursday night, TRH, the show. We chat to health professionals and other people doing incredible things in the world of connection, mental health, you name it, just some excellent people out there in the world that are trying to do their bit and do a similar cause to us. A couple of disclaimers. I'm not a mental health professional. I'm not going to give advice. There won't be too many gory, triggering moments, I believe. You might hear stories, but you might not necessarily hear anything too tragic or gory, hopefully. So, but we may discuss mental health, and if there is anything like that in there, just be aware. If you don't want to listen, you do want to listen, just to be sure. How's our week been in the Mr. Perfect world? Well, it's been pretty cool actually this week. Today I did a webinar with Zurich, who are one of our, they're a key sponsor, along with OnePath, a life insurer. It was with quite a few people. It was about, I think the theme was Work Health and Safety Week. So I try to apply what we've learned from Mr. Perfect to the workplace a little bit. Very informal. Try to keep it very story-based. I don't do corporate very well, so yeah, it was really good feedback. We have another one tomorrow, so I have a bit more of an informal one for the whole of Zurich, Australia, which is, I'm kind of mind-blown because I'm not sure how many people are going to tune in, but I think it might be quite a few. What are we doing at Mr. Perfect? Well, things have just gone crazy busy. We are looking for a lot of people at the moment to help out, volunteers in a few sort of support roles, not necessarily barbecue hosts, so I'll do a social media post about that shortly. We're also starting our football meetups again. Pete Regan, who's on our board, good friend of mine, and who started the football team, the Mr. Perfect FC football team, MRPFC, he is going to start the kick-arounds again. So think about it like this. We have our 2-hour format for a barbecue at the moment. Pete, in summer, is going to kick off, I think in November, is going to kick off our football version of those. It's pretty much where we started. We did a 2-hour football kick around, and that's how Mr. Perfect started. So we're going back to our roots. These will be included in our meetups. We'll try and do barbecues after them. If we can get a barbecue host to help, it will be near Strathfield in West Sydney or West Sydney, however you want to place Strathfield. But if anyone wanted to help out and be a barbecue host there, then please do. So that's us. It's been our week. It's been pretty cool. COVID, a little bit of update on that. Don't like mentioning it too much, but our Victorian barbecues, hopefully we'll get going again in late November if all goes well. Hopefully there's no massive restrictions on it. The demand we're getting is ridiculous. The outpouring of people saying it's time we got these going again, but we have to do everything safe. We have to play by the rules, and we also have some COVID kits, and we have some guidelines ourselves for our hosts, and they'll make sure everything's done safely when it's up and running again. Now, tonight, talking of our barbecue hosts, on TRH, we're talking with Greg Smith. So Greg is the founder of Men Care 2. He's an all-round relentless advocate for men's health. Great guy that I personally have a lot of time for. His experience with a caring role came in his early 20s when his mum, Lynn, was diagnosed with cancer. He quickly discovered the challenges faced by the informal male carers out there that were huge, and set about doing his bit to alleviate that. As I said, not only does he manage to be consistently selfless, he's one of our first ever barbecue hosts. So he started our Central Coast barbecue, which was a roaring success until he moved to Tasmania. And without me asking him, he set one up there in Ulverston, West Ulverston. And that's going really strong at the moment. So I am going to bring in Greg right now. Good evening, Greg.
G'day, Terry. How are you, mate?
I am good. How are you doing, buddy?
Yeah, really good. Thanks for having me on. Reconnection Hour feels good.
Good. You, as I said, I think before we come on, it's been a long time coming. Obviously, being a barbecue host, I didn't want to be too biased, and put too many of our guys on. But mate, you do an awful lot. I know a lot about you. I know a fair bit about you. A lot of time for you, but I think this is important that you talk about what you're going to talk about tonight. And hopefully the guys enjoy it and get something from it. I will remind everyone watching right now, best question tonight will get a Mr. Perfect t-shirt and a hat, which I'll send out to you. So I will judge that after, or Greg will judge it. But make sure you comment. You can comment on the Facebook comments there, or if you're watching on YouTube, I don't think many people do. But make sure you get some good questions out to Greg. We'll read them out probably in the second half, maybe. So here we go. So Greg, as I said, I know a bit about you, but let's see if the audience can find out more. Give us a little bit of intro about you personally, what you do, your background, and basically how you started Men Care 2.
Well, I guess it took a long time. It took a lot of lessons to get where I am now. I started, I guess, in a caring role, informal caring role, when I was around that 20 years of age. I'd figured myself just a normal bloke growing up, normal schooling, normal life, normal upbringing sort of thing, and then got to around very early 20s, and Mum was diagnosed with cancer, and that really sort of changed, I guess, the family dynamics around that time. Mum was given 5 years to live at that stage, so her prognosis was pretty grim. She had an unknown primary that she was diagnosed with, so they weren't sure where the original cells came from, but she had a secondary site that they treated and got rid of that. And the unknown primary cancers are generally pretty, they don't have a good outlook. So she was given 5 years, and I think that was sort of a bit of a catalyst for a lot of changes in the family dynamics and that. And, looking back now, I realised my way of dealing with all that was to avoid it, to not think about what was going on and what was happening at home and what could happen with Mum. So I sort of just focused on work and hanging out with mates and that sort of thing, and did help with Mum with her transport to and from treatments, and just being there doing what I could. And the same with other family members that weren't well at the time. They had mental health issues that progressed, and ultimately diagnosed with bipolar, and that was my father, and that was a long-term thing that had gone from depression and then ultimately led to bipolar diagnosis. And that was something that I didn't know how to deal with. I was a young bloke in my early 20s and didn't have a clue what was really happening. And as I said before, just avoiding things, not really acknowledging what was going on at the time, because I was just focused on working and hanging out with mates and that. But then I look back now and I think how much stuff was happening at home, that I was doing a lot of things around the home to help where I could. I was trying to be a good son and do what I could to help Mum and Dad through different things, through the physical health and that. But it probably went for a period of about 10 years there where it was up and down. I look back now and acknowledge that I used drugs and alcohol a fair bit to cope with what was going on, to, I guess, mask and hide how I was feeling, that I didn't want to acknowledge how I was feeling. And that was over a long period of time. And eventually Mum and Dad separated about 10 years post her diagnosis. Mum and Dad separated and divorced. And then once that happened, that was that was like from the diagnosis to that point. Once they separated, I really sort of had to recognise that I needed to be there for Mum, because her disability, her main disability now is her back. She has mobility challenges related to a spinal condition, and then a few other health issues, chronic pain and just other age-related health issues. But yeah, over that period of time during the separation and divorce, it really hit home to me that I needed to be there for her more often and when she needed me, so I couldn't keep doing what I was doing, and I had to spend more time with her. But then that led to a whole other series of problems where I wasn't I'd lost touch with me mates. I'd left study. I'd left work. All them things, like to focus on mum's care, and that's not uncommon with people when someone's in their family's ill or unwell. They can tend to shift the focus onto that person, and so I recognised that, you know, all that time that I was putting into mum was good and needed, but I wasn't looking after myself, and so that got me to the point where I sort of recognised I needed to look after myself more and be a bit more mindful of how I was treating my own life, like my physically and mentally. And so that's started doing a lot of volunteering and that peer support, which is, I guess, what, you know, draws me to Mr. Perfect and some of the other things that we're involved with, as just that aspect of peer support, that, you know, the health system is pretty flooded and over prescribed. Like, there's so many people need support and help, but health system can only support so many people. So that's why going down that path of peer support really appealed to me, and I guess recognising all them things that were happening with me in my life happened with a lot of other, you know, particularly blokes, that we can't find it hard to acknowledge them emotions and feelings that are linked to situations in life, and then we deal with it through drugs and alcohol or you know, risky behaviours and all that sort of thing. So learning about all that, doing some courses, a bit of education, and that really helped steer me in the right direction, and got me to sort of where I am now, is starting men care too, and really as a way to put a bit of a spotlight on blokes that are caring in Australia. I think there's just under 1.2 million in the latest survey, disability and ageing. So there's a lot of blokes out there. It's not really seen, I guess, as a man's, I guess, go-to for, you know, the women are more traditionally seen as carers and nurturers. So the blokes aren't necessarily seen in that role. And that was what I found hard too, was, you know, meeting new people. They ask you, what do you do for a living? And I'm full-time carer for my mum, and I didn't know how to sort of expand on that and how to keep a conversation going once I said that, because it was sort of become awkward. But
of course. No, I get that. It would be like, how do people ask questions? You know, if someone's really curious, or generally, you might get someone to ask more questions. But generally, if someone said that to me in the pub 10 years ago, or with my mates, or I don't know how I would respond, actually. Now I'd be a little bit more, you know, I'd be a lot more mindful, and I'd be really curious and ask questions and everything else. But unreal, really, like the story of how you got to that. And you covered a lot there in a sort of short space of time. But something I thought about was, did you have a point? Was there like a key point where you went, shit, I'm feeling like this is getting on top of me? Was there like a key moment or any key signs, or do you think it just crept up and you try to repress it as much as you could until it got to a point where you went, like, enough's enough, I need to start doing something? And
definitely avoided it for a long time, but I think unintentionally, not even realising that all them things were not good for me, what I was doing. But there was probably a couple of things that happened. I would continually go out and write myself off on the weekends and that. And I had one night where I got hit by a car and broke my arm, and that was not long after Mum and Dad had divorced, and so I was sort of half out of action with a broken arm for a while, and that like got me down that path of thinking that I can't keep doing this, because I need to be fully there for Mum, and if she needs me, I can't, you know, put myself in them situations where I might hurt myself or worse. And then the other thing was Glenn Poole from the Australian Men's Health Forum, that he wrote a book called Stop Male Suicide. And I met Glenn. I'd read his book and met him at a men's health gathering a few years back, and just reading that book, reading all them signs, the situational risk factors about all the things that you talk about with relationships and finances and physical health and that, and social health, being connected with other people, all them things, all the risk factors that contribute to suicide. And I'm looking at them and reading reading what he's written and thinking, oh, I tick all these boxes. And that sort of hit home to me that even though I didn't go down that path, that thought process of going, that way, but it sort of hit home to me that, I need to make sure I am on a different path and doing better things with my life than what I was doing. So, and the other thing around that too, with that aspect of it, was thinking about with Mum's health. She's in her early 70s. I'm hoping she's around forever, but the reality is I come to acknowledge that she's not going to be around forever, and there's going to be a point where I'm going to be on my own. So I need to make sure that I have, I guess, build up that, I guess, self-confidence, self-reliance, I guess, to be able to go on, because there's something that I think about with men, particularly older men too. I know the stats around older men and suicide is massive, and there's a lot of older men out there that are in caring roles. That number of men in caring roles switches. There's a lot more women in the younger age groups, and then once you get to that older age group of carers, there's a lot more men in them caring roles. So I sort of feel that there's a bit of a connection there between older men and having a purpose and having something there if they've lost someone that means so much to them, that's been their whole world.
That's what I was just thinking as you're saying it. The word in my head was like purpose. Once it's your kind of purpose and you're doing that, regardless what it is, you lose that. You got to be damn resilient and strong and have tools there to kind of see yourself through that. And I know you, from your story, you've already been through 10 times what your average person would have been through, but incredible, really. And I'm always I'm intrigued because you said about ticking the points that you saw in the book, and I'm thinking the same when I looked at the signs at 23 and I think I was 22, the 7 signs of depression, and I was going through it on my laptop and I went, but I was at 23, I'm 22, I wasn't ready to accept that. So I went, I only hit 5 or 6 of them. And my head, I slammed down the laptop. I went, no, that's not me. And I just cut off it. And we do that so good as blokes, to cut off in an instant and then go out and do something else and repress, keep busy. And that builds and builds and builds and builds and builds. And for me, it was 30. I hit 29, 30. I couldn't do it any longer. I pushed it down enough and everything external was like looking okay. And I think that's why I was asking the question about was there a certain point? I don't think there was for me. I kept pushing it until it got to the point where I was like, well, there needs to be a life. I need to enjoy this beyond feeling like this. Was there any particular thing you did when you did first start accessing either social help or professional help? Was there a thing that you knew what to do, or did you just have to find out yourself? What was that process?
I've never really gone down the path of any professional support. I guess I've been around health workers that I would call colleagues, that even though everything I do is volunteer and unpaid, I've been around with different projects and that I've been able to work on, and been around professionals and sort of, I guess, take some of their expertise as we go along and learn from them. But it was a lot of learning as I went along. For as said, with Mum's cancer diagnosis, she ended up being part of a cancer support group up on the Central Coast there that ran for best part of 16 years, I think it was. And so I got involved in that and helped out there for quite a few years as well. And that was that peer support aspect. And I guess that's what kept me, I think, in that side of things, rather than going to a professional help, was I could see that peer support in action, that people would talk to each other and share stories, share what works, what doesn't work for them. And I guess that was a big thing, making sure that people would know that one thing works for one person, but it might not work for the other person. But it's still getting a story out there and still giving someone an option. And that's why I just kept sticking with that peer support, because it's it's everywhere. It's the barbecues that we go to, the man walks that we run as well, and so yeah, you can find that anywhere that you go. Really, the peer support. You might have to look for it. Going to a men's shed or something, or social clubs, darts club, sports clubs. There's plenty of things out there where you can find that peer support, and it might take a while to hunt around and find the right support for you that's going to work for you. But yeah, if you can find that peer support, I think personally, I think it's the best way to go, because it doesn't cost anything.
No, I just love that you found that. Like, you found it when you did, and then you went all in on it. And you clearly do with the work you do now, but you went all in on it to find what works for you, what works for others. Really gave yourself to that, and probably in times where you said to me, and in similar personalities, in the sense that I could not speak. I found it very, in a room full of people, I just wanted to hide. I was very happy with being the guy that helped others, but I didn't like talking in front of people. I didn't like talking to people I didn't know. I wasn't particularly good at parties unless I was hammered, unless I was drunk. Couldn't talk to a girl unless I was drunk. Even family parties, I'd hide away in the corner, because it wasn't like I was in despair in those moments. It was just I didn't feel I needed that social connection as much. So now I get it on my own terms, in my own kind of doses of it, and that works for me. There might be some people who need it all the time, but I love the way you've gone about it. It's excellent, the way you've accessed it, the way you found that it works for you, and the way it keeps you constantly connected and purposeful. All the groups you find, or you attend, or you advertise, get behind. It's brilliant. I was curious to ask about what is it you're actually doing now with Men Care 2? Do you hold your own events, groups, support, education resources? What is it right now you're doing with it, and where do you want it to go?
I don't really know where I want it to go. Eventually, I'd just like to get that recognition out there, the name. I'd like to just get people to remember that Men Care 2, because there's so often, I think you mentioned before about the caring as a profession as well, and it's the guys that work in hospitals in aged care, even, well, I guess, I know GPs to a certain extent, you expect men to be in that field, but the aged care and hospital workers that are blokes probably don't get recognition they deserve, because it is a caring role. I know just a few courses I've done at TAFE around health with community services and allied health, the classrooms, 80% women. There's very few men in the classrooms, and I think that's similar for I think there's a place called the Gender Equality website in Australia, and that was one of the stats I pulled out from there, was that there's less than 30% or something of classrooms in community services and health professions are men. You see a lot of men in the management sections of community services and that, but not as many in the grassroots, face to face with people out in the community. So I guess that's where with the unpaid informal men that are caring, just really just try and build up that recognition that it is something that men do, and that it's something that we can talk about, and that aspect of caring for someone. Blokes, I think men are really good at caring, because we can see what needs to be done and we do it. But the side of it's caring that I struggle with and still do at times is that you can do all the practical things that someone needs you to do for them, but you can't take away their pain, and you can't change their their situation or their illness, and that's it messes with your head sometimes, that you can't fix that, because as blokes we're fixers, and we like to get in and make sure something's working properly, or that like the men's shed, they get the broken mower in, and they all work on it, but they're having conversations while they're doing that. And I think that's one of the things I want to do with Men Care 2, is trying to encourage guys to get together, and we've got people there that we love and care about, and they've got, health challenges or illnesses, and we can't fix it, but we can be around each other and have a chat. And then how I started down here in Ulverston, was the Mates Coffee Club. And so far I think we've had about half a dozen guys come along at different times, and it's really good. It's just to sit around and have a cup of coffee, and we don't necessarily sit there and just talk about caring. We talk about the sport from the weekend or what's happening locally, and it's just that sense of being around other blokes who understand that that little break from what you're doing is important. And you don't necessarily have to go into a full story about something happening. You can just touch on something, and it's sort of understood. So eventually, just recognition.
That's really important. Sorry. You said no, it's fine. You said having that time for them just to not necessarily talk about the caring and what they do, but because I had a question today from someone about the barbecues, and maybe we're clearer on it now, but it was at the start, it was whether we openly talked about mental health or whether it was like a topic, and then that got people talking. And I was always not against that, but I was always it's got to be natural. And if we talk, and then we dance around it, like we would with a doctor, maybe talk about a different health problem, a different this, or work stressing me. That inevitably, if you're a bit more comfortable chatting and you get trust with someone over a few months, you're eventually going to talk about something a bit more serious. And that will alleviate something for you. And it's great. You said I like the way you said it, like it's not a distraction. It's just that if you're involved in that all the time, it can sometimes be that escape you need, and to be around, hence the barbecues, hence what you're doing, going for a coffee with other guys. That couple of hours, even if it's an hour, like people turn up for, is vital. It can be just alleviation of that stress, and that, you're physically removed from it. You're around guys that, no doubt, casual and are talking. And sometimes I'm sure you have the same. We have guys who don't necessarily talk. They might talk a tiny amount, but they're there because they're listening, and that's good for them. And they hear it, and it's really important. Generally speaking, how do you think, from all the work you've done, not just with MenCare 2, but with all the other groups you've promoted, with the barbecues, or the mountain walk, whatever it may be, are there any common particular challenges you think men face, particularly, be it, I don't know, I'm picking up some examples here, whether it's breakup of relationships, whether it's a physical health problem, is there anything like common themes that you see?
I think it's just them main ones, like I guess situation might have changed, that they've either lost their job or had a breakup, or some maybe older guys that have found that they're in a caring role now, or younger guys that have maybe got a child that needs care and support. It really is all different, and I think that's what I've enjoyed about what I do, is that there's so many different people out there and different stories that I've been able to hear, and it's not, no, I don't think any two stories are the same, but that they are. I guess the main thing I think it comes back to is just that things in life change, and they just maybe looking for a bit of stability, or a bit somewhere that they can come along to regularly and connect with other guys, and I guess try and make sense of it a little bit, that things have changed, but it's normal that things change, and it's probably just that little bit of reassurance that something's might be going wrong, or something's not quite right in life at that point. But if you get out to a barbecue or to a walk or just for a coffee, you have them conversations, and you can find out that other guys might have been through that situation too, and that's that peer support. Comes back to that peer support, I guess, that you're not necessarily telling someone else how to get over something, or how to find a new normal or something, but you're just sharing your experience, and I think that takes away that feeling of that I'm on my own, and I've got to face this on my own. it's a shared problem that, other people have been through it.
Of course. And are there any, how do you feel generally then about, for everything you've seen, the future of where we're going with peer support and groups like that we're both involved in? What's your hopes for it? Where do you want to see it go? Like, how do you want to see it develop? What's the ideal, do you think, for you from what you've seen?
I just want to see heaps more. Like the barbecues has just been awesome seeing them grow over the last couple of years. To see all the new ones popping up, and even the last 6 months, I think there's been quite a few new ones come up, even with COVID, which is so important, I guess, now for that connection, because of all the changes that people is happening in people's lives. And I was talking to someone the other day, and it's probably not just locally that things are changing. It's, if we've got friends and family overseas or in other parts of the country that, you can't connect with them like you would normally, so you can't travel to see them. So it's big changes for a lot of people, and some with work, people in Victoria that have had to be in, with restrictions and that. We had down here in Tassie earlier in the year that there was a outbreak at the Burnie Hospital, and they shut both the hospitals down and had us in a lockdown for, I think it was, and I shouldn't have said, I don't like that word lockdown, because I think that gives that context of, you I don't know, I just don't, it's media sensationalising things. And that's another thing, is just that way things are reported, and the wording of things in the media is a bit of a trigger for the way we can view a lot of things too. But so that the restrictions, I guess, for a period of time that worked down here, and they're obviously working in Victoria. But we were in that situation for a little while, and things are great down here at the moment. But I think it's I love, back to that question, was just all these different groups that are around, like on the Mr. Perfect page, to connect with other groups and other men's health services, and that there are so many sort of informal organisations that are providing that peer support, and there's so many innovative ways, I think, that they're doing it too, and which is really good, because the formal services, I don't think they're really geared to change and adapt as quickly as they need to meet the demands of what blokes need, and to have so many different, the walks, the Mr. Perfect barbecues, Tough Guy Book Club. There's so many different Grab Life by the Balls. There's hundreds of them, or there's probably 100 or more of them out there that are just doing great work to give men a place where they can turn for support, or to just watch, like even with the conversation we're having, or podcasts that guys put out, online resources and that are out there. You can do a lot of stuff anonymously, so that's that stigma or shame, I guess, that is so prevalent for us blokes, that we don't want to show any weakness in that. And that's the way we grew up in the 90s with the rugby league, and the guys still out on the footy field, tough, strong. And if they get knocked down, they're on the ground, they're hurt and they're injured, but they still get up, push the trainer, well, I'm all right, I'll carry on. And like we grow up saying that. I grew up saying that, and I think that's how you're meant to be all the time. And so I think doing so many things like the Mr. Perfects and everything else is just really the best way to do it. That peer support.
I think you, because you call it peer support, and I've never used that word, so I love it. Firstly, that's great. It kind of encapsulates what we're doing, which is really cool. There's obviously a lot of groups doing, like you said, what we do now and similar things. And my view on it is it's moved how can I put it? We've moved to a point where we know what is working for us at the other end. So I call it the soft entry to what we do. And I've said this maybe this year, I've never used this term before, but this is the first time I've used it, and now I say it daily. Like, we need a soft entry into the system, whatever you want to call the system. It needs to be a soft entry. And if you're at a stage where you're not seriously mentally ill or incapacitated for a long period of time, you need a soft entry into the system. You need to figure it out. You need to research. We need to do it slow. You can't force guys into this stuff. You can't scare them into it. You take them to something that's clinical and scary straight away, and guess what their opinion is going to be straight away when they get told, "Oh, I've only got 15 minutes, hurry up," sort of thing. And by the way,
and the environment that you're into.
Exactly. And I get it. It's definitely not a criticism of the people involved in those roles. It's the system. And if we can make sure that we provide enough at the soft end, we're going to stop guys getting to the hard end. Like, at some point, they're going to already have accessed something before they get to that end. So I love peer support. It's a great way. It's a great word, the way you encapsulate that. And I think the other point being, that's kind of where I want to see this go. And we are not professing to be experts in any clinical form of, whatsoever. But I said it today as well on this webinar. There are so many groups out there to help. Like, we don't need to be as overwhelmed as we are. If we can guide people appropriately, people like you and myself, to things that are good for them, whether it is what we do or whether it's not, if we can guide them appropriately in a calm way, I think there's a lot to be said for that, and they can feel that there is some support there at that soft end. You're never going to force us. I mean, I talk for England now, like I can tell everyone about my story and what I've learned and everything else, but I only talk about that because I did it the hard way. And I don't want people leaving in 30 years and then coming to that. So what you're doing is vital. It's very, it's like there's a lot of forgotten guys, right? We assume we bunch everyone into these groups or into this mindset of you're a man, when actually looking at all those groups that cater for what we do, like you said, there's a book club. There's something that we do barbecues. There's things where people go driving. Guys are interested in like cars, old school cars, driving against depression. You name it, there's something for everyone. Even if you go on meetup.com and go to the really informal groups where you'll find people, if you enjoy chess, you'll go and find that. If you enjoy playing an instrument, I guarantee you there is something there for you. And I guess that's the message I'm trying to tell people. There is something there. Let's try those things first, or at least access those things and see what they're like. And I think it's really, really, really important. There's a couple of questions here I had, or a couple of comments even. Bear with me. Great one. This was just after you were talking about sort of what you get out of what you do, I guess. And anonymous Facebook user says, I'm a male carer for employment, and I'm finding it's interesting and challenging, and the connection between myself and the client is incredibly beautiful. It gives me a true sense of connection. And I guess you would mirror that, right? That's what you would. I don't think you could add much more to that, except, is that your experience as well? Or?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely in that. So in the different in paid employment to being an unpaid carer for a family member, but you've definitely got a unique connection with that person because you're there, I guess, linked to being able to do things that they can't do themselves physically, or you're providing them some emotional support, which is that they might need to be able to have a good quality of life. So yeah, that connection that you have is definitely a unique one and pretty special, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. The way they've described that is amazing. Even the language they use, I think that's really cool. It's really it's quite refreshing to see guys using that language rather than try to gloss over it and try to be manly about it. I think it's really nice reading that. The other one was from Ant. Who said, I cared for my mom during her brief 6-month battle with cancer, so I feel your pain, brother. Did you experience a sense of survivor's guilt when you acknowledge you had to put more of an emphasis on your own mental and emotional well-being?
Yeah, I think you do. You do have a lot of guilt with different things. I know I still feel guilty if I go out and do something and I know mum can't do it, or I'm leaving mum on her own for a certain amount of time. It's been different, I guess, it's in the last sort of 12 months, pretty much, because we moved down here and then pretty much COVID hit, and then that sort of changed everything. But I know, prior to that, if I was going out and doing things, I would feel guilty that I was out maybe having fun or enjoying myself, and Mum was at home on her own. I knew she might be struggling with, even something simple that we take for granted, like making herself a cup of coffee, and I know that she would struggle for that, and I should be there doing it for her. But, at the same time, I've got to make sure that I'm well enough to be there for her, 90% of the time, and that 10% of the time that I'm not there with her, it should be my time that I can enjoy. But it's something that I still struggle with, but definitely getting better at it. But it's just something that happens over time. I think you find it a little bit easier to have that break, have that little bit of separation. But it's definitely feeling guilty about doing things for yourself is a big thing for anyone that's caring for someone who's unwell.
No, I get it.
And it is.
No, go for it. Finish. No, finish.
I was just going to mention that it's Carers Week next week. So National Carers Week in Australia. So all states and territories, it's obviously different this year because of the way things are with gatherings and that. But all the states and territories have got peak bodies. So if you go onto the Carers Australia website, each of the states and territories are listed there, and there's the peak bodies. So most of them have got different activities on, and a lot of it's online. So it's a good way to sort of find things. And I know there's I won't say which one because I'm not 100% sure, but one of the Sydney carer support organisations are running a series of talks, and there's one on Wednesday on male carers. So I'll flick that up on the MenCare 2 Facebook page over the next day or so, and people can connect to that as well if they're interested in that, that conversation.
Brilliant. And I'm curious then, so when it's been Carers Week previously, is there, because I actually think I remember a day job many years ago in a healthcare company, we exhibited at a event which was Carers Week it must have been the Sydney one, at Darling Harbour, and it was an exhibition, and I remember going there, and I remember it being more of an exhibition style thing, and there was talks and everything else. However, is there anything that is linked to sort of the mental health of carers that is currently there apart from what you do? Have you seen anything else, or is there any other groups that people can access or support, or anything else that you've noticed?
Probably this last 6 months or so, I've noticed that they've started to do a bit more around the mental health side of things for carers. Prior to that, I really don't think there was much out there. I think they sort of tried to encourage social carer groups, so people that were caring to get together with each other, and that, which is kind of it is a mental health activity because you're socialising, you're connecting with other people. But in terms of, I guess, targeted specifically on mental health for carers, it's definitely something that I don't think has been really explored. And even in the research, there's a bit of research out there. A lot of it, there's some good stuff from the UK, and a couple of good papers on men in caring roles from the UK, but and Scotland is another a good place that's doing some good research and work with men in them unpaid caring roles. But here in Australia, there's not a lot of research focused on blokes, and I think that's another aspect of men not engaging with the services because they're not designed for men. They're more designed for women and children to engage with them social community services, and I think that's why they don't necessarily cater to males, because we don't use their services. But the services aren't designed for us, so we're not going to use them. But
it's like, sorry, go ahead.
Just that research too, the aspect of men taking part in surveys. I know the national surveys for Carers Week, for carer organisations, they have low response rate from men. I know it's just something that blokes don't necessarily like to sit there and do questionnaires and fill out forms. I guess that they might be busy doing other things that they see as more important. But it's something I've tried to encourage a little bit, as if there is surveys and that out there to do, to jump on and do them, because it's important to get them numbers up of men that are having a say and getting opinions or perspectives across to those formal organisations to say that, yes, these Mr. Perfect barbecues are awesome, support this kind of work.
Absolutely. And that's tricky because there's 2 points in that. You mentioned it's like build it and they will come kind of thing. So it relies on people like yourself doing it with nothing, literally like starting something up from nothing, taking on all the cost yourself, organising it yourself, promoting it yourself, funding it yourself, whatever that may be, at least at the start, right? And it's almost a sign of, if it's not there, sometimes it's like you have to build it, right? Like someone's got to build it. And if it's not going to be a government entity, and I don't know if it is their responsibility, I don't know enough about that. It's the same with mental health generally. They don't really, it wouldn't be the same maybe if they build it themselves either. And I think that's the one kind of grassroots people who know what it's about, have been in that scenario, truly passionate about it, truly doing it for nothing. Like if they get something out of it in the end, great, like it's a bonus. But so it's really tricky because it's not theirs, chicken and egg, right? Like if it's not there, they don't know about it, but they can't fund something they don't know it's there. So the heartening story is to see all these grassroots things coming up, and hopefully, one day a few of them will remain grassroots. I hope we do as well, like stay grassroots. Yes, funding's great and it will help us grow and it will help us make impact, but it's more people knowing about us. When people offer money now, I'm like, no, like it's not about money. Please just tell more people about us. Share it to 10 more people. That is all I ask. And I find it funny sometimes that people want to say, oh, here's $100 or I donate, and not necessarily know what we're doing that deeply. And I'm like, look, God, you can do that all day, but really you have the power to tell more people about it in your friend group, in your people you play football with, the people you meet for a coffee, your family. If you told 10 of them about something like you're doing, and they went, oh yeah, and they think about their uncle, brother, partner, whoever it may be, that is the best. That's the gold. They're the best. Like just to share what you're doing. That's the way it spreads. And be it on social media or informally. The second thing about survey things interesting. I've found I have that exact reaction when I get sent surveys. I can't make me coil up. I go, oh, I've got all this other stuff to do. That's like my gut reaction to it. So one, how do you make people do them? How do you make it more engaging and not as long? How do you get that real info that you want out of it quickly without guys switching off? That is probably like a golden question that needs research in itself. Is this something you incentivize people by, like an official market research coming in and give you a voucher for something? I don't know if that works for guys, but that's the key point. If they don't know, they don't know. We can't tell government, we can't tell more people about it, can't get more funding, can't get more publicity. It's the kind of golden question. But you got to keep trying, get in front of enough people to hope one day someone's going to listen, right?
Yep. So that on the surveys and research and that you would have heard of the 10 to Men study, the longitudinal study. I think there's something like 15,000 men Australian men that are involved in the study, and that's over. I think they've been running for at least 5 years.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure it's about 5 years. So they've got starting to get a bit of. I think they've just recently put out another paper from a next wave of the study. So over time, they're going to give a real good indication, I guess, of how men are, I guess, dealing with life, different challenges made in life. So they've got a really big job.
Right? We've got to be patient because I think we just generally, as society and men, have to be patient because, one, if it takes us that long to tell people what we're struggling with, guess what? By the time people get a study on it and some real data that shows, the reasons why and the causations of it, and it goes back way, it's taken a generation for us to start talking. I'm quite hopeful this is what we do now is just to see, this is nothing compared to what's going to happen in a generation's time. That's my hopeful thought, that everything we're putting in now will bear fruit for our children's children, and it will. That's my hope. Because you're right, that study, just to get that amount of people involved, would have taken years to get to that point. It's going to grow and grow. It will grow because we'll talk more. And we've got to get behind stuff like that, regardless of what our gut reaction might be. It's really important to do.
Definitely, yep.
Fantastic, mate. As I said, the stuff you do selflessly, and the support you sort of give others without asking is incredible. That's what I love about these grassroots organisations and things we do. And from day one with the barbecue, you just got on board and just got on with it. Organised, so good. Backup, you have a backup plan. I love it. I absolutely
just such a simple concept, isn't it? It's just that's such a simple concept, and that's what I love about it. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's it's a barbecue and a conversation, and I've had barbecues where there's been maybe one or two people there, and then barbecues where there's a lot more. But sometimes the smaller ones are even better because you get that more of a connection with the other people. And but there's definitely for anyone that's interested, definitely get involved and as a host or even as a participant to get along to the barbecues, and definitely love doing them, and being able to do that down here has been a good chance for me to meet people as well and to get to learn about the community. So it's been a really good way to, I guess, make new mates and just can't thank you enough for the support that you give us and the encouragement. Anytime I come to you asking if we can do an extra barbecue here or there for a certain thing. So we're doing a barbecue next week it's Seniors Week down here in Tassie next week. It's also Carers Week. So we're doing the barbecue next week, and I've just found out today that we've got the CEO of Carers Tasmania is coming along. So David Brennan will be there, and we've also got our local mayor coming. So hopefully we'll get a few people along, and that's another chance just to fly the flag and let people in the community know that there's things out there for blokes, and that whether they come along or not. And that was something that I use whenever I get an opportunity to do a talk or do a presentation or anything like that. Was, I think you posted it a while back and blocked out the name of the feedback, who the feedback was from, but it said about that they probably wouldn't be coming to a barbecue, but just knowing that they're there makes a huge difference. Exactly. Or it makes them feel better about the world, and I think that's the thing too. You can't, sometimes you don't know what sort of an impact you're having, but you can't really measure things like that if someone's not coming to a barbecue, but they know they're there, and that just makes them feel better. So I think just letting people know what's out there is can be like a big help just in itself.
And the same, mate, for enough about what I do, more about what you do. But just the comments tonight, and people probably watching this that are from an informal male carer background or in any sort of caring profession, I think it just gives them a lot of heart to see that people are doing this and other people are going through it, and there's a place for them to go and to access and to talk to if they need to. So to wrap it up, tell us where can people find out about Men Care 2? Is there a website? Is it social media? What sort of things do you want people to know about?
Yeah, well, website mencare2.org, and social medias, just search for Men Care 2. Probably the big things, the weekly email. So we put a weekly email out called Men Care 2 Monday, and we put stories in that are focused on men. There's a bit of a focus on men that are in caring roles in some of the stories, but then there's a lot of more general stories too, tips and ideas, links to groups, research, all things that are relevant for blokes and that can I find helpful at times. That sometimes it takes a while to put them together because I want to try and find the right things, but I learn as I'm going along putting them together, and that's the three things I promote through Men Care 2 is that being informed, being connected, and being active. So being informed's probably a link back to early on in my life when things were going wrong. I didn't know much about it, so trying to learn more about what's happening in your life and asking questions, doing short courses if you can, or like mental health first aid, suicide prevention are great things just to be able to give you confidence to have conversations and talk about them things, or just learning what you can about a certain topic that's relevant for you, and then being connected. So Mr. Perfect's a great example of being connected, just being able to stay in touch with other people in some capacity, no matter what's going on in your life. And so Mr. Perfect, volunteering or getting involved in some sort of club or group, and then being active. So getting out there and keep the body moving and doing what you can to look after your physical health, because that's something that we struggle with as blokes. The stats around men's health with all different things that we put off going to the doctors, or we get embarrassed, or don't want to talk about things that might be going wrong. Get out there, get active, and try and make sure you look after your health, and go to the doctor, make your annual trip to the GP and have a chat, and make sure you look after your physical health, because it's so important that you can be as well as you want to be to do things in life and enjoy it.
I love it, mate. The message you've always, I don't know, I've watched you more as a, not just necessarily what you're saying, but more what you're doing, and you do it quietly, but you do a lot of it, and you just keep going, like moving forward. And that's a very key, simple message for everyone. Getting up each day and doing something that's a bit selfless and pushing forward and promoting that, life's going to be tough and it's tough for yourself, but you act so well. As a quote I think about the other day, which is a bit of a cliche, but it was more about what we're doing. Mr. Perfect's kind of grown, it's got big, and you kind of get a bit overwhelmed by it sometimes. And then someone said, well, like, you can think globally, but like act locally. And I think you embody that wherever you go, whatever you do. And I think that's something people should always think about. We can impact a lot of people, of course we can, with these technology, this technology we have now. But you do it locally, you guarantee the amount of people you inspire to do similar things to you. That's how we'll change it, very slowly, very measured, but very slowly. And I just appreciate everything you do for Mr. Perfect. You've been the best ambassador in the world to have. And look, everyone, please check out Men Care 2. Google it, go on the website, follow on social media, sign up to the newsletter. I will share the links as well.
Awesome,
after as well. And please check out Greg's Steering if you're in Tassie, anywhere near Ulverston, get down there. I'm sure we appreciate you being there. And he's always got a great community going. So thank you so much, mate. Really appreciate your time. And we'll see you very soon.
Thanks, Mike. And good on everyone that's involved with Mr. Perfect and the board and everyone for the support and encouragement.
Good man. Take care,
Cheers,
Greg.
Terry.
See you.